Let's talk Fear the Walking Dead Season 1, Episode 2. I thought this was a solid episode. Now it opens right up with the principal clearing the school. We can hear security guards or another worker on the other end of that walkie-talkie, so that sets up the scene later for multiple bodies, possibly all walkers, to be inside the school. Now when Travis Madison and Nick are in the truck, it does say on the radio that there has been a spike in officer-related shootings lately. Then it goes on to say that the LAPD has no comment, and he switches the channel. So everyone's saying this is Rick Grimes and this is Atlanta. You misheard it. 100% it is LA. It's a spike in officer-related shootings. Now, the biblical proportions part was very funny. They made it sound like they were talking about the apocalypse, and it was talking about sports or something, and the kid kind of rolled his eyes, Nick did. I thought that was a very small and nice touch. A little comedy right there. Now, moving on to the daughter, Alicia. She was an irritant for me in this episode. I didn't mind her in the first one, but this one, I wasn't feeling it. Now, I know teenagers are supposed to be teenagers, but even when she is worried about her boyfriend, Matt, she seems annoyed and even rolls her eyes when Travis asks, when did it start? With 911 not answering and Matt's parents away, you'd think she'd be acceptable and open for anyone's help at this point. Yet she seems to be a total bitch. And that doesn't slow down at all throughout the episode. Now, Matt has a bite mark on his chest, and our characters, especially Travis, quickly realize that Calvin was shot and bites are not the culprit. However, our characters seem like they're still processing what's going on. Also, I want to add that with the infected biting and attacking, it's very easy to see how some survivors believed bites did it. Like Morgan in the original series, asking Rick if you've been bit. If you see that, and that's all you see at a distance when you're getting away from these things, you're going to probably think that bites have a main thing. Bites play a main role in turning people into the undead, you know? Now, I like the chaos and the characters scrambling around the house making plans for what's going to happen next, and they end up separating, which brings us to the highlight of the episode, in my opinion. It was that creepy echo of an empty school. Now, I really like this, and although I don't feel like they capitalized on it, I did enjoy how it turned out. Now, first Maddie enters and we hear the metal detector beep. Now, this sets up the scene later on. She meets up with Tobias, who appears to be looting the school for the food and supplies. Now, I just gotta say this real quick. I love when she's leaving her office and she looks through the glass into her office. It's as if she's wondering if that life, that job, if it's all over. It's the little things. I just love that little pause. Now, in my predictions, I questioned about drugs being in the school, but from what Tobias says, it appears that there's an LAPD office or lockup inside the school. I didn't go to a school that had one of those, so that's up for you in LA to let me know if that's true or made up. I'm assuming it's true, you know? Now, Tobias also has a smart-ass comment, which adds a little comedy to the situation, kind of like the radio beforehand. He makes the comment about the government containing it the same day they're gonna warn us, you know? And she's kind of like, oh yeah, you got me there. And I do want to take the time to mention this real quick. A lot of fans were really knocking Maddie for saying that, and I thought that was kind of odd, because what do you want her to do? Freak out a student? She most likely did not believe that. She's saying this to calm him down. That's what parents, that's what adults, that's what guardians do, especially in a school when it's not your kids or it's not your family. You don't want to freak them out for nothing and then send them home. You know, imagine explaining that. What is she gonna tell Tobias? We're all gonna die, you know? Of course, she says, the government would tell us, shut up and go back to class, everything is okay. So I think a lot of people ragging on the Maddie character for that, I think that's just ridiculous. I'll be honest with you, it's absolutely ridiculous. What do you want her to say? You know, she doesn't know she's living in a zombie apocalypse story, you know? She doesn't know that. She's just trying to tell a young student that everything's gonna be okay, because I just don't see what other option she had. Back to the school, this takes us into the creepy sounds from the intercom, and this is where I wish some other parts in the episode were trimmed down, so they could have gotten maybe an extra minute or two here with the alarms and sounds in the school. I absolutely loved it. The intercom clearly represents a zombie or a walker inside the school, and then the alarms go off The same way, I'm guessing that Maddie came into the school, which leads me to believe that a walker either got into the school or it was just walking around that area and walked past the metal detectors. I really like the whole walker setup with Artie. That was a really awesome walker. I love how the knife wasn't big enough to penetrate the skull, but I was actually surprised all the gore was completely taken out of that scene. That was a shock. I actually kind of woke me up. That took me out of the scene. I was like, oh, I expected to see some kind of head squishing. Now, I still wonder why they ditched the food after all that they went through, but because it was a close call, it probably scared the shit out of them, so they were like, you know what, let's just get the hell out of here. But I still I'm like, why didn't you just take the food? It seemed like they were almost gone, or close to the door. But we do know there's more walkers in the school, so they could have heard other noises and said it's not worth it. But I'm hoping he at least loaded his backpack up, because his backpack seemed kind of slim, Tobias splitting off on his own, that was a head scratcher for me. But who knows, his mom could be one of the survivors or the survivor from the new webisode coming later this year. And if you don't know about that webisode, just check out my video list. But it's likely that this isn't the last time we're going to see Tobias. Now, the riot mixed in with the outbreak was a very nice touch, and it felt real. However, I was left wanting a little more. I like seeing the cop, paramedic, whoever it was, bitten, and they're treated, and it seems like that's it. That leaves us seeing how thousands of first responders were probably bitten right there and left to eventually turn. I love that. I hate in zombie flicks where they get bitten and you see them turn. It's like, oh, the audience isn't smart enough to know that dude is fucked, The audience isn't smart enough to know he's going to go somewhere, turn, and, wreak havoc. So I love seeing that. And that gives us an idea of what popped off. We do have to use some of our imagination on this, and that's the only way they can tell that story, is if the audience isn't spoon-fed, and I firmly believe that. Now, the son, Nick, he seems to be a great candidate for a fan favorite. He's already high on my list. And I love when Maddie gives him the oxy and he's crushing it up and his mom's just staring at him. And he stops and he flicks his fingers and he's like, yo, she wanted to leave, kind of throwing his sister under the bus. And it's kind of like taking the attention off of him. He's crushing his oxys and he's like, no, go over there. She tried to leave. Go holler at her. I stopped her. You know what I mean? But this brings me to my second problem with this episode. And that's great only having two problems with an episode. But after some very good character moments with Maddie rinsing the blood off and breaking down and crying, because keep in mind, Artie was a friend, a co-worker. That was harsh. Washing his blood off and the realization of what she did coming back to her. And then she's on the phone in a moment of weakness crying for Travis to come home. I absolutely love that scene. I thought it showed her acting ability very, very well. And this was all great, but then the silence comes when her daughter asks what happened. And I just don't see people not speaking. If someone ignored me, I would lose my shit. And then we go to the ending. We have great visuals with a very balanced soundtrack that actually adds to the awesomeness of the scenes. But we see a neighbor attacking another neighbor outside, and we get more silence. I just flat out disagree with this scene altogether. The daughter should have had more of a struggle to get outside, and the mom should just slam the damn door and be like, listen, tell her one sentence. Just be like, we can't help her, it's too late, there's nothing we can do. Or just simply tell her it changes people, like we don't understand what's going on. Just say anything. The silence drove me fucking nuts. I just completely disagree with it altogether. And that pretty much ends it, but again, I thought this was a very solid episode, and much to my disappointment, there is no episode next Sunday. I say that. I'm actually very annoyed about that. But it actually appears there is going to be a double episode September 13th. I have not verified that yet. I will put that in the prediction video whether or not that's true or not, but go ahead and look that up. It's looking like we are getting 2 episodes back to back in 2 weeks. If that's the case, I do 100% forgive them skipping next week. I'm assuming it's because of Labor Day and everything like that. Anyhow, put your thoughts and opinions about this episode in that comment box, and go ahead and throw down some predictions if you want for the next episode coming in 2 weeks. Fuck you, AMC. Fuck you! Alright, that's all I gotta say. I'm done talking. It's your turn.
pain eating my heart, depression on my mind. And even from the start, I knew that I would shine, but I fear I will die before I reach the finish line. My thoughts stay in the haze, staying blurry for days. There's multiple ways I keep myself self-medicated. Probably never get to see the day this kid made it. I'm so faded. Drink my last rum and coke, stumble out the bar, dumb and broke, kick my car, come and smoke.